All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something I bet you didn't expect. Waffles.
Waffles.
Waffles. And we're going to be using this video we found from the history guy.
Okay.
And, you know, it's funny because you think about waffles. It's like, okay, breakfast food, that's it.
Right.
But there's a lot more to it.
I mean, yeah, I never really thought about like the history of the waffle, just kind of always been there.
Yeah, like how did we get here? You know, like how did that happen?
Right.
So to start, let's go back in time, way back.
Okay.
Ancient Greece.
Wow.
And I don't know if you know this, but waffles, or at least like their ancestors, they were around even before pancakes.
Really?
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh,
It's crazy. Back then, they were called ooze, and they were basically like flat cakes.
Okay.
And they cooked them between metal plates over a fire.
Yeah.
So not too different from today, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. They weren't sweet.
Oh.
They were savory.
Uh-huh.
Like they used to put cheese and herbs in them.
Hmm.
And no square holes either.
So like, how did we get from like savory Greek ooze to the sweet waffles with the squares we have now?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. In medieval Europe, you know, ooze, they started to become like communion wafers.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, those thin breads used in religious ceremonies, you know.
Right, right.
And they would cook them in irons with like religious images and stuff.
Wow.
It was a big deal. Like in 1270, they even had a whole guild dedicated to making wafers.
A whole guild.
Yeah, like a professional organization just for wafer makers.
It makes you think about how important they were back then. Like not just food, but part of their, culture and beliefs.
Exactly. And here's another fun fact. There's this Parisian cookbook from like 1393.
Okay.
And one of the wafer recipes, it calls for wine in the batter.
Wine. Really?
Wine.
Wow. People have always been creative in the kitchen, haven't they?
I guess so.
Mhm.
So when did those grids show up? You know, the squares.
Yeah.
So that was around the 15th century. And we can probably thank the Dutch wafer makers for that one.
Okay.
And actually, both wafer and waffle come from the Dutch-German word waffel, and it means honeycomb.
Makes sense. It does look like a honeycomb.
Yeah, it does. And you know those early waffle recipes? They used brewer's yeast to make the batter rise?
Brewer's yeast.
Yeah. I read this recipe from like 18th century Britain, and it said you had to let the batter rise for 2 hours.
Moi, ce qui m'éclate toujours, c'est la technique pour les ouvrir. Ça,
But, you know, it's interesting.
ouais, c'est, à mon avis, c'est la pratique. Hein. Les premiers, ça doit être un désastre. Ah oui, oui, je ne pensais même pas à ça. Ouais. C'est qu'en plus, c'est chaud. Ouais.
Après, ça va.
Well, knowing a bit about American history,
Dans la
I'd
main
say
cuite.
Bon.
You got it. They brought the tradition over from Holland.
that makes sense.
And, of course, America had the perfect topping already waiting, maple syrup.
A classic combination.
Right. And get this, Thomas Jefferson was a big fan of waffles. He even brought a waffle iron back from France.
Wow. He really liked his waffles.
He did. But even the waffle iron, it's got a whole history. Like in the 19th century, they made some big changes. Things got a lot easier with like shelf-stable baking powder.
Yeah. I bet that made a difference.
It did. And in 1868, this guy Cornelius Swartwout, he patented a new type of waffle iron.
Okay.
Made cooking waffles much safer and more convenient. And you know what? Thanks to his patent, we now celebrate National Waffle Day on August 24th.
I had no idea there was a National Waffle Day.
There is. See? Waffles are more important than you think.
You're right. I'm learning so much already. So what about the waffle irons we all use now? When did those come around?
That was the 20th century.
Yeah.
Like the first electric waffle irons, they became popular in the 1920s.
1920s, huh?
Yep. And then in the 1930s, we got ready-made waffle mixes. Talk about convenience.
It seems like every generation has its own waffle innovation.
It really does. And speaking of innovation, you won't believe this.
Yeah.
The guys who made Eggo waffles, the Dorsa brothers, they originally made mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise.
Mayonnaise. Who knew, right?
That's wild.
It is. But, you know, America's not the only place with cool waffles. I
Yeah.
hear they have potato waffles in Germany and, like, fish-shaped waffles in Japan.
Fish-shaped waffles. That's amazing. I'm ready for a global waffle adventure.
Let's dive in.
Okay, so those potato waffles you mentioned,
Yeah.
like what are those all about?
So in Germany, they're really popular.
Okay.
And just imagine, like, that crispy waffle texture, but with, you know, potato.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they serve them as a side dish, usually.
Huh. So not even a sweet thing.
Not sweet at all, no. Savory.
Interesting. So it really is like a blank canvas.
Total.
You can do so much with a waffle.
Yeah, and even here in the U.S., you see some restaurants like putting waffles with salads or using them as a base for chili.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's like, why not, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It makes you wonder what other savory waffle stuff is out there.
I know. But potato waffles, that's not even the most unique. In Japan, they have these fish-shaped waffles.
Fish-shaped?
Yeah, and they're filled with sweet bean paste.
Oh, wow. So it's like sweet and savory.
Yeah, and it's like, who thinks of these things, right?
I know. That's so creative.
It is. But speaking of waffles from around the world, have you ever heard of International Waffle Day?
I can't say I have. Is that a thing?
Oh, yeah. March 25th.
Mhm.
It's celebrated in Sweden, Norway, and Denmark.
Oh, cool.
They've been, eating waffles there forever.
Yeah.
Like since at least the 15th century. But the date, well, that's kind of funny.
Oh, how so?
Well, March 25th, it's also this Catholic holiday,
Okay.
the Feast of Annunciation. And the Swedish word for that holiday sounds a lot like Waffle Day.
Oh, so they're like similar words.
Yeah.
Wow.
Isn't that fun?
C'est
like
moi
a
ce qui m'éclate
happy
toujours,
little
c'est la
accent.
technique pour les ouvrir. Ça.
It is. So I guess.
Ouais, c'est à mon avis, c'est la pratique.
But,
Les premiers, ça
let's go
doit être
back
un
to
désastre.
We're talking
Ah oui,
about
oui,
waffle
eh oui,
fried
je pensais
chicken,
même pas à
which is
ça.
a
ouais.
classic.
C'est qu'en
There's
plus,
a lot
c'est
of other
chaud.
cool
ouais.
stuff happening with waffles here.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like the gourmet waffle trend.
Gourmet waffles.
Yeah, like they're using all these fancy ingredients,
Oh, wow.
like lavender-infused batter or candied bacon or even edible flowers.
Wow. That sounds pretty fancy.
It is. And, it's not just the waffles themselves that are changing.
No?
People are using waffle irons for all sorts of stuff now, like hash browns, paninis, you name
Right,
it. It's
right.
like you can waffleize anything.
I guess you can. I mean, it's a pretty versatile tool.
It is. But, when I think about the history of waffles, like what really strikes me is how it all ties together,
Yeah.
Like it's about culture and food and technology.
It's true. Like the waffle, it shows how we're all connected.
Yeah.
And that people all over the world just love a good, crispy treat.
Exactly. So out of everything we've talked about, what stands out to you the most?
I think for me, it's just how versatile the waffle is.
Yeah.
It can be sweet or savory, breakfast, lunch, dinner, whatever. It can be like a simple snack or a fancy meal.
It really can.
And it's something that people enjoy all over the world.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's just how something so like ordinary can have such a cool history,
No. As you think about like what other stories are out there just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, it does. So
Yeah.
we've gone like all the way from ancient Greece to, modern day waffles, religious stuff, sports shoes, even mayonnaise.
It's amazing how much there is to say about waffles.
Right. But I guess now we got to ask, like, what's the point of all this,
Yeah, like why should we care about the history of waffles? It's a good question.
It is. And like, I get it. Waffles, they're kind of just there,
Yeah.
But when you really think about their history, it's more than just breakfast, right?
It is. Food is more than just what we eat.
Right.
It tells us about history, culture, even technology. I mean, you
Yeah.
think about the waffle, and it's kind of a symbol,
What?
of like how connected we all are, and that people all over, they just love a good crispy waffle, right?
Yeah, they do. And, the thing that really gets me is the waffle iron.
Right.
Like from those simple plates to electric ones. That's crazy.
It is, and it shows how creative people are.
Yeah. And it makes you think, like, what other everyday stuff
Yeah.
have a crazy story behind it,
Oh, totally. And don't forget about those communion wafers, right?
Oh, yeah. That still blows my mind.
Like starting with those savory Greek ooze and ending up like in a religious ceremony, that's wild.
It is. It's like food traditions are always changing.
Yeah, always adapting.
Yeah. And then you got that track coach who made those shoes.
Oh, right.
It's like you never know where you'll find inspiration.
It's true. You just got to be open to it.
You do.
Oh.
So as we finish up this waffle adventure, what do you hope people take away from it all?
I hope it makes them a little more curious, Like the next time they see something ordinary, maybe they'll stop and wonder, like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
What's the story here,
I love that. And hey, maybe they'll even be inspired to make some waffles.
Yeah.
And think about like everything we talked about while they're eating them.
That's a great idea.
Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of waffles.
Of course. It's been fun.
And
Moi, ce qui
till next
m'éclate
time,
toujours, c'est la technique
keep
pour les
exploring.
ouvrir.